Good morning. I'd like to begin by giving you a little update on the Rose Cottage project. It's coming along very nicely. Still got a lot to do, but we've got a little less than 2 weeks to complete our tasks. COTS came through and did a walkthrough the other day, and they were quite impressed. And they're going to take possession on the 1st of August. So again, thank you to everyone who helps physically, with labor, or financially. I think what we are doing as a community and partnering with COTS demonstrates our consciousness. And that's the most important reason for anything that we do here at Church of the Oaks. We are considering, we're trying to, it looks like maybe Thursday or Friday, the 30th or the 31st, we would like to have an open house for all of our congregants to come and see what it looks like after its renovation. So be watching for an email from Wayne, like our newsletter. He may actually send the newsletter out a few days early to announce the times of that open house. I hope we can do that. I'd like you all to see it. Inasmuch as I have been pretty busy over at the Rose Cottage, sometimes I feel a little guilty that I haven't spent as much time preparing my weekly message as I might have otherwise. And this week, yesterday afternoon, I'm doing this video Saturday evening, so you can watch it on Sunday. So Friday, after we shut down work at the cottage, I started to contemplate what my message would be. And I had 1,000 different ideas. And when I went to sleep last night, my mind was in chaos and confusion, and I had all kinds of little tangents of thoughts. And then I had a dream somewhere in the night, about 3 a.m., I believe. And it was just a dream, but what I'm going to tell you is absolutely true. And then I'm going to tell you the result of that dream today. You all remember the television show Gilligan's Island, and they had this smart guy, and they called him the professor. Well, I have a friend, and in real life, and his name is Tom, and he's a pretty smart guy. Not as smart as he appears to be in my dream, but that's who was personified in my dream. So in my dream, my friend Tom, who during my dream, and not in real life, I became aware that Einstein had an IQ of 186, but my friend Tom had an IQ of like 265, the most brilliant human being in the world. But he didn't have many social skills, he didn't interact, he was pretty much a recluse. But he had so much intelligence and knowledge about the algorithms and coding and technology. And he called me up and he said, in my dream, he called me and he said, "Pat, I need to talk to you. I need a huge favor." I said, "Okay." So we met. And he said, "You know, I've watched human beings suffer and cause other human beings to suffer my entire life. It's a tragedy. And I've decided I'm not going to watch that anymore." He said, "At 10:30 tomorrow, our world is going to come to an end." He had apparently tapped into the nuclear weapon devices of every nuclear weapon on the face of the earth. And he said, at precisely 10:30 tomorrow, all of them are going to be detonated at the same instant. And he said, within 1 minute, this planet will no longer exist, and suffering will end. And he said, the favor I want from you, he said, it's taken me 5 years to do this and tap into it. He said, can't be stopped, it's set. He said, I would like you, I'm going to arrange that you be videoed, and I would like you at 10 o'clock to give a 30-minute explanation and eulogy of humanity. I thought about what he had said and what he asked me. And I woke up with a scream. This was probably the most powerful dream I've had, the most real dream I've had that I can remember. And I thought about what he said about suffering and the suffering that goes on our planet. And as I thought, it's my opinion that while suffering is so horrible, suffering is actually the mother of love and compassion. When you talk to people who have gone through horrible ordeals, almost without exception, there's always a few, but the Holocaust survivors weren't bitter, they didn't want revenge, but they had this uncanny sense of love and compassion for their fellow human beings. We talk about loving one another, and we talk about our expanding our consciousness and generosity. And I have said it, I'm sure some of you have said it, I want to share all I can with the poor people, with the homeless people, with the hungry people, the impoverished people. In that statement, we have designated class. Subconsciously, we're more affluent, we're better than, we're more fortunate than. Instead of having the awareness, let's share what we have with our fellow human beings. Our world needs that love, unbiased, unlabeled love and compassion, acceptance and understanding. I thought about our world all day today. And I hear so many times people are out to solve problems. Well, quite frankly, folks, I don't think there are that many problems. Our government is always solving problems. Governments throughout the world are solving problems. The biggest problem they seem to have is making sure that the comfort zone of the rich and the ruthless and the corporate empire is undisturbed. The system of this world dominance, military dominance and force and obscene profits and income belongs to the rich, white, ruthless people who've started this country and who own it. And everything else doesn't really make that much difference. That's the problems being solved. But what about the problem of racism? Oh, I listened and I watched a while back a talk of one of the most aware and brilliant men that I can think of, Dr. Cornel West. He said, racism isn't a problem. It's a catastrophe. The suffering that people of color and ethnic difference have survived, more suffering to the point, and it's still going on. It's a catastrophe. It's not a problem. Women don't have problems with equality. It's a catastrophe the way women have been marginalized and treated for centuries. When half of the children of color in this country live in poverty, in the richest country in the history of humanity, that's not a problem, that's a catastrophe. And when this country has the highest level of number of people incarcerated of any country on earth, that's not a problem, that's a catastrophe. That's injustice at a catastrophic level. When Los Angeles has 75,000 homeless people, that's not a poverty problem, that's a catastrophe, a systematic, catastrophic event throughout this nation, throughout the world. When there are tens of millions of people in refugee camps all over the world trying to find a safe place to sleep, that's not a problem. That's a catastrophe. And when we think about our changing climate, well, somebody will figure out a solution to the problem. That's not a problem, my friends. That is the beginning of the extinction of 90% of life on this planet. That is truly a catastrophe. And when we think about the nuclear threat, in my dream, had that have happened, this planet, if the nuclear weapons on this planet right now were to detonate, even a majority of it, this planet would explode. It would be blown apart. It would be trillion little meteorites out in the universe. It's not a problem, that's a catastrophe waiting to happen. COVID, it's not a problem, it's a catastrophe. And our governments don't seem to have much expertise at handling catastrophes. They bail out the banks problems, they can find solutions to them. But catastrophes, they're a little slow on the uptake. Look at Katrina. In every catastrophic weather event, Katrina, 9/11, Puerto Rico, Haiti, all the hurricanes and tornadoes, it's not the government that figures out solutions. It's folks like you and me. We show up with shovels and food and blankets. And humanity has this uncanny, God-given ability to deal with catastrophe. Our world is spinning with catastrophic proportions. And Washington or Moscow or Beijing, they aren't going to solve the problem. It's humanity, the consciousness and that agape love that God put inside of us that will deal with and find the solutions and the systematic changes required to turn these catastrophes into just problems. Problems are great. The solutions are doable. Catastrophe, that threatens the core of humanity. And my friends, each one of us, Vivian did a Inquiring Minds not long ago, and she quoted Socrates, and I typed it wrong. But Socrates wrote it, said it, and Plato wrote it. The unexamined life isn't worth living. I ask each of us to examine our lives, examine our consciousness. Do we truly love life? Do we truly love human beings, our brothers and sisters, no matter what their color, no matter what their sexual orientation, what their philosophies are? They're human beings, their lives. Do we truly love, accept, and nurture them? We can create this nurturing society, this nurturing consciousness. The status quo, they're stuck in the consciousness of domination and force and violence. Us, we the people, human beings, we have it within our God-given power to love and nurture and accept each other and deal with, help each other through these catastrophes. This pandemic, the injustice, poverty, racism, they aren't problems, my friends. I think perhaps we are in this time of transformation. Maybe we, as humans, we weren't smart enough or wise enough to begin this transformation on our own. Maybe it's things like climate change and COVID that have been presented to us to challenge us, to give us the opportunity to heighten our awareness and deepen our awareness of the love and compassion that each one of us has an infinite amount of inside. We are so afraid of dying, so afraid of being hurt. I hope we can focus our attention onto the joy of sharing ourselves with humanity, with life. I hope we can focus on creating this consciousness of love, consciousness of nurturing, of caring in every catastrophe. It comes to pass, and whatever is required to get through it has always been accomplished by the community of humanity, the community of other human beings, the love and caring. That's my message. Take a look inside your heart, inside your mind. Examine your life. Examine your consciousness. Every one of us, especially me, can do better. Humanity is dependent upon that, and so it is.